Macbeth, by William Shakespeare, is one of the most famous plays of all time. This tragic story of vaulting ambition, murder and madness has been performed all over the world. It has been translated into languages ranging from German to Swahili. Today, almost 400 years after it was written, we can safely say that somewhere in the world there is probably a production of the play being rehearsed or performed. There are many reasons why Macbeth has remained such a popular tragedy. One of the reasons is that the characters, especially Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, are so complex and fascinating. In this program, we are going to talk with the director and some of the actors from the Illinois Shakespeare Festival's production of Macbeth. We will watch them in rehearsal and see how they take the printed words of the play and turn them into living, breathing characters before an audience. Here's the rehearsal of one of the most famous speeches in all Shakespeare. Lady Macbeth's impassioned cry to the gods to give her strength to support Macbeth in whatever it takes to gain power. It is a difficult speech, calling for powerful emotion and careful precision.
Raven himself is horse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. Unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold.
In this scene, it's important to remember that Macbeth has had the prophecy introduced to him by the witches in the scene on the heath. He's been told that he will be king, but he's not committed yet to the idea of doing anything about the kingship. And then he comes together with Lady Macbeth, and it's obvious from what she says in the scene that she helps to propel him on further into the commitment to going through with the act, to killing Duncan.
Only look up clear. To alter favor ever is to fear. Leave all the rest to me.
Okay, that's fine. Now,
Kel and I discussed the idea that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth fantasized about Macbeth becoming king someday. So that when I enter reading the letter, and I read that Macbeth was referred to as the witches as "Hail, King that shalt be," I decide then that he will become king. But then I realize that he lacks the guts. So I call upon the evil spirits for help. There's also the idea that Lady Macbeth wants to help Macbeth achieve this. And Macbeth refers to her as his dearest partner of greatness. And so she feels that she must help him. She feels a commitment towards him. And she's willing to do anything to get him to become king.
Early in the rehearsal process, Cal and Joanne and I discussed the importance, the critical importance of the first scene that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have together in the play. We've already seen him twice in the company of the king, in the company of Banquo. We have a pretty good idea at that point that he is considering the idea of killing Duncan and usurping power. We have seen Lady Macbeth read a letter from him that describes the encounter with the witches, some of his hopes for the future. But we have never seen the two of them meet on this issue until this scene. And in that particular scene, Macbeth has very little to say. Most of what he does is respond to her. He's somewhat non-committal in his lines. But the discussion revolved around the fact that all three of us felt that we had a lot to establish in that scene. Number one, the relationship the two people have, the passion that they feel for each other, the sense of unity that they have, the desire that they have to achieve a goal together. It sounds perhaps a little grim to say it that way, because what they are planning, after all, is a murder. But they are, in a slightly strange sense, unified by the desire to achieve greatness, not necessarily to commit evil.
Obviously, the director has been working on the script for months before he's even cast the show, decided who's going to play what role. But then, at the beginning of the rehearsal process, he has to communicate an overall concept to the actors, and then the rehearsal process is very much a matter of working individually with each actor to make sure that the development of the characterization he or she is working on is consistent with the overall concept of the production.
The vital nature of the relationship between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is something that I struggled with a bit, because like most tragedies, like most Shakespearean tragedies anyway, the point of attack in the play is rather late. By the time we meet Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they're poised on the edge of the abyss already, and they're about to jump off. There's no time to run the relationship backwards. So we have to start with the realization that this is a relationship of great passion that is about to disintegrate. But it is very critical that it is a passionate relationship, otherwise the disintegration makes no sense. And that's something that Joanne and I have spent a good deal of time with Cal working on, finding the passion that these two people have.
So, the witch's prophecy is set in motion by Macbeth and his wife. And the only way the prophecy can be fulfilled is by killing. The mood of the play turns very dark. But Shakespeare does not limit himself to dark deeds in this play. In the very heart of the darkest night, in the midst of the darkest deeds, Shakespeare introduces, possibly to release tension, one of the most famous and most controversial of his comic scenes.
Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Oh, here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Oh, come in time. Have napkins enow about you. Here, you'll sweat for it. Knock, knock. Who's there in the other devil's name? Faith. Here's an equivocator. Oh, who could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake it could not equivocate to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. Oh. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith, here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, tailor. Here you may roast your goose. Not. It's never at quiet. What are you? Oh, but this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Oh, anon. I pray you, remember the porter.
Critics have questioned this apparently comic moment, coming as it does in the midst of such serious business. But most modern performers and audiences have approved of this bold change of pace.
In working with Neil Levine, the actor playing the porter, the task Neil and I were working with all the way through the rehearsal process is to get both the sense of the comic, and this is a comic scene, but also to get a sense of the grotesque, the balance between the comic and the grotesque that Shakespeare has built into the scene. Here we have a comic scene taking place where a porter is talking about working at the gates of hell at the same time that Macbeth's off in another room committing a murder that's going to drive him into a hell of his own making. And at the same time, we've got a drunken porter who's making jokes about drinking when upstairs, off stage, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are using liquor to disguise who really committed this murder of the king.
Cal and I had talked about trying to find the balance between the grotesqueness and the humor of the piece. It's definitely very funny, and I think it falls at the right moment in the piece. It's at a moment of high tension, and it gives the audience a break, a chance to come down from that for a second or two. At the same time, it relates a great deal back to the rest of the play. The farmer, the equivocator relate back to Macbeth's ambition and his treachery in obtaining the crown. Also, at the same time, the drunkenness of the character relates back to the liquor being used in the murder, and his drunkenness, which is almost used as literally stalling to give Macbeth time to wash the blood off his hands.
Perhaps the most famous scene in Macbeth is the sleepwalking scene. Lady Macbeth has cracked under the stress of her crime and is watched by the doctor and gentlewoman as she tries to purge her troubled soul.
To bed. There's knocking at the gate! Come. Give me your hand. It's done. Cannot be undone. To bed.
We know that soon after this anguished moment, Lady Macbeth dies. The script does not tell us for certain whether or not it is a suicide. And as you continue reading Macbeth and discussing it in your classroom, that's one of many questions for you to consider. By studying the actors' process of discovering their characters, we have learned techniques for increasing our own understanding and enjoyment of the play. When reading Macbeth in your classroom, it's important to use your creative imagination. The visualization of Shakespeare's characters will help you enjoy his works to the fullest. By learning and using this skill of imagination, you can bring to life in your mind Shakespeare on stage.